welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Mindless Horror Podcast, Dark Harbor Takeover. And today we have with us the pleasure of talking to one of the 2024 Queen Mary sliders this year, or this past season, none other than JB. How you doing, brother?
Hanging in there.
He is, if you guys are fans of the Queen, he is just right there in the neck of it, man. He's just there.
In the
Like,
depths of the ship.
yeah, he's there. He's working hard to help rebuild it. So thank you so much for preserving a beautiful historical monument that is the Queen Mary. So that's got to be an honor.
It really is. I mean, the stuff that you get to do there's nothing that beats it.
I bet, dude. And it's like, you talk about, meta for you. I mean, not only just working Dark Harbor, but also now in the off season contributing to bringing back the glory of the Queen Mary and making it like a pretty much, functioning condition again. Talk to me what that's been like, obviously, to kind of, it's almost like in a way you're paying your dues, you know what I mean? And like, it's just year-round paying your dues. Like, how has that been for you to kind of just, like you said, just to see all this stuff? Like, it must be unreal for you, man.
It really is. I mean, we're working on projects that, in areas that people haven't accessed in 40 plus years. And that everything's still original, untouched, a few things here and there that people have seen. Other than that, like, we're going to areas that even the public doesn't even know exist.
Damn.
And we're still uncovering new areas. So that's the unique thing about the Queen Mary is a lot of the areas, and I hate to say it, when Disney owned the ship, they sealed up a lot of areas. So we weren't able to access that. But now we're actually looking back at schematics, seeing what's going on, and piecing that together and kind of cutting open these areas and like, oh, so this is where this was, this is where that was, and covering, history.
Yeah.
And then not only that, but just restoring it. I mean, we're in the process of major projects of restoration, new funding coming in. It's gonna be a big year.
Man, that's great to hear. On top of that, we could probably already predict with the return, hopefully, of Dark Harbor 2025. I feel like last year it was a huge financial success, being that I would see crowds and crowds of people every time that we went, from opening weekend all the way to closing weekend. Like, we went 3 different times throughout the season to see 3 different areas of what the event looked like, and every single time we went, crowded. You got to be a part of the return of Dark Harbor, man. I mean, that's a huge thing right there, because, a lot of people love this event. A lot of people watching, diehard fans of Dark Harbor. This was a monumental announcement when it got announced. What were your reactions hearing that this got announced? I've been asking everyone because, man, I mean, I don't think this is like one of those surprise announcements that just kind of drops out of nowhere. And when it did, I think it shocked the SoCal haunt community, like, in the best way possible.
Most definitely. And when I first heard that Dark Harbor was returning, it was honestly extremely exciting, but extremely like shocking that it was actually happening. I wasn't expecting it at all. I had an idea that it might be happening. I know you've mentioned before, like, they were like using Shaq as like a feeler for Dark Harbor. I really think that's kind of what happened, is they just used that as feeler, like, okay, let's go to the next, let's step it up a level.
Yeah.
And it was just awesome to see it return from start to finish as well. It was just crazy.
Yeah, dude, it's unreal to transport back into that world again. That was and what's unique about the style of haunt that Dark Harbor is they like to pull a lot of things from their lore of the ship. The ship's been around since before World War II, was a huge part in World War II, was brought back to Long Beach and docked at Long Beach for good now. It's been there ever since. So there's so much history between not only traveling to different countries and traveling the world, but overall the uses it was, for what it can do and what it became. And I love it that, in the past they've pulled from the lore. 13th Floor continues to still pull from that lore, and everything. It's got to be surreal for you to kind of, work the ship year round, but then knowing these stories and knowing like the kind of where they pulled them and stuff, and now kind of seeing that stuff, real life and stuff of what it's, supposedly based off of. I mean, it's got to be one of those things where it's just, as a fan of both Haunt and just the ship, it's got to be one of those like fanboy moments for sure.
Oh, 100%. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you hear the stories of Dark Harbor, you hear the lore that Dark Harbor brings in, but you also don't hear the full amount. We have access down here to like the records and everything of what actually happened. So you're actually able to flip through and see what actually transpired, what happened, what was done. And a lot of these incidents are true. A lot of people will say, oh, it's just fake. Like they're just using it as marketing. No, it's true stories, you know? And really, I have Dark Harbor to owe this job to, because without working Dark Harbor, I wouldn't have had the offer for this job. So I owe that to Dark Harbor 100%.
I dude, and I have to just Dark Harbor's been very kind to us in the year too. Dark Harbor was the first one to pull the trigger and give us media ever for as a platform, and I'll never forget that because it kind of made us feel like, yeah, we're important too. Like we can do this media stuff. So I always will love Dark Harbor for that. And then just the comeback this year was incredible. And we're gonna get into that. I want to get into your experiences a little bit later in the show and everything about that. But talk to me from the beginning for you, JB. What was it that made you fall in love with Haunt and Halloween, my friend?
So it's kind of funny. It was when I was really younger, like 8 or 9. I'd always go down the street to my friend's place. They're a little bit older than me, and they would always scare. I'd always see them scare, and I'm like, okay, that seems fun. Like I'm seeing these reactions, and me as a younger age, I was terrified of scary things. Ironically enough, I hated it. I wouldn't go near anything. Um, it was actually funny because my mom took me to the Queen Mary at one point, and I actually got so scared that we had to leave because we did the Ghosts and Legends tour.
Nice.
um, so it's kind of ironic that now I'm scaring here,
Yeah.
uh, but really, I just started scaring with them. I scared there at their place every Halloween. Each year doing something a little bit different, and then eventually I started working at a haunt for City of Gardena. They just had like a free little haunted house that they did, and it was when I was first introduced into sliding.
Nice.
So that really opened the door, and then I worked Shaqtoberfest for 2023, and that was like the first time actually working somewhat of a larger scale haunt. I wouldn't call it like a full scale like Dark Harbor, but still semi larger haunt.
Yeah.
And then Dark Harbor rolled around, and I was like, okay, I have to do this. Like, there's no way I can't.
Yeah. What was the first year for you going into some of these haunts? Like, what's the timeline looking like as far as you scaring officially at your first haunt compared to like you going to Dark Harbor now? What was that timeline like?
2023 is my first year at Shaqtoberfest.
2023 Shaqtoberfest. I
Yep.
mean, I've and and you mentioned it earlier. I've always said that that was that testing ground, and I like to think that maybe 13th Floor went into business for themselves to try to sprinkle those seeds in. Not hating on it. I respect the fuck out of it if that's the case, but everyone was wanting Dark Harbor back. I think I always say too that Shaqtober year 2 was better than year 1. Um, when you got a maze like the Gray Ghost, that's kind of that reminisce to Dark Harbor. It's the seeds are planted right there, and then the
Mm-hmm.
next year you're like, I wonder. Like I remember talking to my girlfriend, like that's got to be the testing point to see if Dark Harbor can work again. Like, and it sure as hell, I like to think it was. Um, and then you go fast forward that announcement day, and I remember like sitting right next to my girlfriend. I remember exactly where I was. She's a diehard Dark Harbor fan. I remember showing her the news and her just getting ultra excited about it. I was excited about it. And come time opening weekend, we went, and God, felt like it never left. It really did. It was incredible. It was awesome. But talk to me about a little bit of your introduction for 2023's Shaqtoberfest. What did you do? Where were you? And what was the experience like?
So 2023 Shaqtoberfest, I actually saw they had like a little A-frame sign at Midsummer. I was like, oh, that'd be. Oh no, it wasn't the A-frame sign. It was the Schackenstein,
Yeah.
right, dead front, right before you went downstairs. And I saw that, and I was like, oh, that'd be funny to work at. And I remember my girlfriend, she was like, well, you should. You love scaring. Might as well do it. So I was lucky enough to communicate that with my work at the time, And I just applied, not thinking much about it, wasn't expecting much, honestly. And then come by like 2 days later, get an email, hey, want to schedule an interview. I actually did my interview for that for Shaqtoberfest at my old work on my break that same
Dude,
day because I was just
yes.
like, I have to do this. Um, and it honestly it was super easy. Everybody was welcoming. I remember showing up first day. I didn't even have zip ties. I still had shoelaces on my sliding shoes because I didn't have a chance to actually do that yet because I just remade new shoes.
Right.
So I think it was Omar Lone Star that loaned me some zip ties, and I just remember everybody was super friendly. Helping me out, pass qualifications, all that. Pass the slider test, showing me new techniques, all that. Looney, um, all of them were just super helpful during that time frame, and then season started,
Cool.
and it was definitely a shell shock of, oh my god, like this is larger than I thought it was going to be because I
Dude.
didn't work build for that year, so I had
Right.
no idea what to expect. So it was a definitely surprise, but towards the end, started coming out my shell a little bit more each time, and it started coming to a not really like a repetitiveness, but kind of like a you just kind of know what to expect.
Right.
They tell you the numbers beforehand, like, okay, we have this many guests. Okay, cool. And it just you get into a groove, and then it's over before you know it. And it was like, oh my god, that actually happened.
Man, you go from, your rookie year going straight onto the streets, man, sliding already. I mean, and for a lot of people, that's very rare that happens. So, I mean, good for you for getting that opportunity to do that. I can only imagine that just sparked something inside of you that just wanted to make you better and wanted to make you great at the craft. I can imagine that you were probably within the next year, you're like, all right, we gonna do this full force, and lo and behold, Dark Harbor comes around.
Yeah.
Talk to me about going into 2024, the audition process, your excitement for this event. I mean, what was it like going into that audition and trying to get back, especially back with the reimagining of Dark Harbor?
hmm the auditions, honestly, super easy. I mean, Looney, he knew I was like extremely nervous because Shaqtoberfest didn't really have auditions for sliders. We didn't really have to do any acting. It was kind of just, okay, you know how to slide. Okay, you passed the test. Sure, you're on streets. You know.
Nice.
But Dark Harbor, they're definitely looking for more storytelling, more lore behind the characters. Each character had their own design, all that. So they were definitely looking for that, and I was hella nervous before auditions. And yeah, you know, it honestly went really well. Um, Slayer test was easy. It's the same stuff just over and over again. Um, everybody went on a Saturday, so I was pretty much the only slider on a Sunday. So it was kind of like
All
I was the
eyes
only
on you
one.
for sure, man.
Yeah. So it added a little bit more to the nerve factor because there wasn't anybody else with me. But it is what it is.
You see, I think for me at least, I think that would add less nerves. Uh oh, did I lose? Yeah, honestly, dude, I think I would probably be less nervous without people there. I don't know. That's just me. I know it's a little bit more nerve wracking when you have. Damn it. There we go. All right, are we back? I think we're back. Hopefully,
I think
let's.
so.
All right, but yeah, nonetheless, I think auditions solo for me are the way to go. But that's just me. I don't know. Maybe I just
Some
prefer
people
it that
prefer
way.
it, some people don't. I mean, it varies from person to person.
It does, man. And I mean, again, it's probably an intimidation thing where the people you look at these auditions, it's just could be nerve wracking, because a lot of the times it's the higher ups there, and they want to make sure that they're casting for the right roles. If
hmm
anyone can deliver on that. The I think the thing a lot of people were very happy to see and hear about this season, if I am not lagging, I'm sorry. My computer shows
You're
different.
lagging a little bit. You're good.
Okay. A lot of people were excited for the return of the slider show at Queen Mary's Dark Harbor. That is a staple to Dark Harbor. You were fortunate enough to be a part of that show this season.
Yeah.
2 shows a night, 9 and 11. A great special tribute show you guys did for Squeaks this season. Talk to me what that experience was like for you, especially kind of still being, going into your second year and now being a part of this team. Now you get the mixture of rookies and veterans all in one place. Like, how was it for you to kind of absorb that? Like I'm assuming you absorbed a lot of knowledge like a sponge, man.
Yeah, it definitely provided the opportunity to definitely absorb a lot of knowledge, and opening weekend is a little chaotic. Everybody's kind of feeling the grounds, getting used to it. Um, I was fortunate enough to be able to slide in during Shaqtoberfest, so I kind of already knew what to expect at the grounds.
Mhm.
But some of the new guys that have never slid on community grounds, they were extremely surprised by how rough that ground is. That was the number one challenge that all of us are facing because it's just gone rougher and rougher. Um, the 2 shows a night was honestly, if we did any more than 2 shows, I don't know how we would have survived. I mean, as it was alone, we were it would basically be the shows, and then we'd go into 2 different groups for breaks, and it worked perfectly, but it was a lot, especially towards the end of the season. Um, and there was one night in particular that I remember Looney and Lone Star had to put the fear of God into us because our first show, because we were short so many people, and our first show was not great. We'll put it at that. And
I mean, let's be honest. When you can rehearse and rehearse and rehearse, but when you finally have an audience, the first show's never going to be great, and it's not anyone's fault. It's just the nerves of that opening night to try to get it right, to try to hit your marks, try to entertain at the same time, and it's like, it's a lot of nerves, a lot of pressure. But then as the nights go on, I bet you guys were able to. Obviously, I mean, I saw it by the end of the run. I mean,
yeah,
even when I went that first weekend, I thought it was fun. So
yeah. I mean, that night it was later on in the season. It wasn't opening weekend. Opening weekend we had everybody. It was more so like later in the season where we were kind of missing a lot of people.
mhm.
Because the whole Slayer team got sick eventually, and that was just a whole, as always, hot cold, just gonna get you.
Yeah,
Um, and it was just I think that was the worst show that we have had. But then that following show after them putting the fear of God into us, it was by far probably the best show that we had. Honestly speaking, and that was with I think it was 5 or 6 people, and that was
wow,
it.
wow.
And so that was definitely an experience because we all thought that show was getting pulled. We were all backstage, just like, damn, that really just happened. And then luckily enough, Looney, she gave us that second chance, and it worked out, and it just perfectly executed show. Couldn't have been better. Opening weekend was a little chaotic. As Ruby said, we had those EMT tents right there, so we'd have to stop the show midway through.
Yeah.
I think management on their end kind of saw that and was like, "Wait, that probably isn't a better, and isn't the best spot to have that."
Oh man.
So having those gone after second weekend or after opening weekend was phenomenal because it gave us more room to work with and more room for sitting. You
Right.
know, so and then by the end, everybody just kind of knew their places, knew what to do. As the season progressed, you'd have those meetings right before show, 15, 20 minutes. We'd huddle up. You know, go over game plan, all that, run through spots. But like towards the end of the season, it was just kind of like, okay, everybody know their spot. All right, cool, go. It was just more streamlined, more and more, and that's what was really unique was seeing how it progressed. And we got a little bit more wiggle room in the show, so we were like doing different stuff, adding different stuff to different parts. It was the show was by far one of the best parts.
Dude, we went 3 times, and every night we went, we would watch that show somewhere, somehow. And one of my favorite videos that I shot this season that absolutely just, I love the way it came out. It took a while to edit, but it was a lot of fun, was that first weekend when we did go. we shot the slider show both times in different angles and kind of gave an experience where it's like you got a takeoff sequence on one camera down there, and then when the second show happened, we were on the other side. So it's like you get the takeoff, and then we got the shot at the end where you guys landed. So that was one of the most. Those always challenge me when it comes to editing those, because I'm just like, you got to be super precise on like the jumps and everything. And luckily, both times the show was the same thing, so it was easy to kind of line them up and kind of get that edit that I wanted. Very swiftly. It was one of the best videos that I was very proud of that last season. But dude, I think it was just incredible overall, just to see that show and just to see everyone involved in it. You got stunts going on, you got some comedy going on. In your opinion, who won the fight, Omar or Ruby?
Oh, honestly, I'm gonna be completely honest. My money's on Ruby.
Oh wow,
My money's on Ruby.
wow, that's interesting. Is it because he was an army guy?
Give or take.
Yeah, he's got the experience. Sorry, Omar. I don't know if you're winning that.
Love you,
battle.
Omar, but Ruby's got it.
But I think Omar's the type of guy that would not go down without a fight. Like, he would throw a couple punches in there for sure. I just don't think it's going to end well for him. But I've been shocked in the past, so I mean, it could happen. I'm not going to rule it out, but
you never know.
You never know what's going to happen, right? Yeah, I think that was such a really well orchestrated show. How long did it take you guys to rehearse the show overall?
Rehearsal, I forgot how many times we went to the rink. I think we went to the rink around 3 or 4 times, maybe even less. And after that, it was on-site practice during our walkthrough.
Oh, nice.
When they were walking through everybody through the mazes and like orientation, that was our first actual practice on grounds. We had never been able to practice on grounds before. We didn't really have music. We were kind of just going off of timing. But I mean, honestly, it didn't take as long as I thought it would have.
Mhm.
It was more so just streamlining everything and make sure everything was on time.
Right.
Yeah,
and I think that with a show like this too, you need to be, on the awareness needs to be at its all-time high, especially with landing your cues, knowing who you're supposed to go after, knowing what part of the show it's in.
Mhm.
I even went, you talked about later in the season where there wasn't as much people, and we caught a couple of those shows. I don't know, not nearly as that bad, but we caught a couple shows where there weren't a few people missing. So there were even times where you guys were picking up double roles, your role on top of someone else's. So you even had to know everyone else's role just to kind of keep up to date. Like, what was it like to was it hard in the beginning to know everyone else's role? Because I know there was nights where you guys had to fill in those roles, or was it kind of one of those things where as you guys went through every night, it was very easy to figure out what everyone did, at what time everyone did it, what cue everyone did it at? Like, how was that for you in the beginning compared to what it was at the end?
it was extremely difficult at the beginning. I honestly, I was so focused on memorizing my parts of it that it kind of just grew into a blur. The whole show was just a blur, basically.
Wow.
And it was kind of like getting to the point where, like, okay, I've got to step in at some points. Everybody has to fill their parts, and it just came down to, if somebody was missing or somebody missed a part, we'd all just kind of figure it out real quick and be like, okay, go, or somebody would just do it. you
Right.
know and going towards the end of the season, that definitely streamlined a lot better, to where we were able to just recognize, okay, this person's not going to realize they're going to go, and just go, or like, this person's missing, cool, fill in that spot. So towards the end of the season, it definitely streamlined way better than what it was at the beginning of the season. I know beginning of the season is kind of like almost deer in headlights. You'd see a spot missing, you're like, what was that?
Yeah.
But definitely towards the end, it was like, okay, it's more organized.
You and the thing I always remember from that show is you were always paired up with Death Row at the end when you guys kind of did your final. Did I lose you? No, I got you still.
Nope.
You're just sitting incredibly still. You're tricking me. He's good at that. See what I mean? This is why we need to have him at Dark Harbor next year again.
Yeah.
The stillness right there. That would scare somebody. That would scare me for sure. you got to get announced a lot with Death Row throughout the season. You guys were obviously always labeled as the rookies for Dark Harbor. I mean, how cool was that to have what I like to call the voice of God right there? We call him Voice. The voice of God himself announce you in that show. I mean, that's an iconic, staple for that show, and that iconic voice come announce it. You got to feel like a wrestler coming out to a huge ass crowd, or like a rock star coming out to a concert right there.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it was surreal. And voice, I love you to death. But some of the voices that he would pull at the randomest points were the funniest thing. If you attended Pride Night, you'd know it was the absolute funniest thing, and we'd be all standing in the back just dying because we were not expecting that. But coming out, Death Row, like me and Death Row, when we got called, it was cool because we kind of just did our thing. Um, and Voice, he was awesome to work with. I mean, he throughout the season would step in at different parts. If somebody was missing for like a base or whatever, he would step in
Right.
and fill in those parts for us. So it'd put less work on us to have to like kind of organize how we're gonna get down to the end of the runway to do that. So Voice was phenomenal. I mean, props to him. He was awesome.
It's just as simple as that. He has the voice, and that's
Oh
what
yeah,
that's what we that's why we love him.
one
Yeah,
hundred percent.
I got to get him on the podcast one of these days. I got to interview Voice. See how
You
that
do.
goes. That'd be a lot. That'd be a lot of fun. I think. Voice, if you're watching, shoot me a message. Let's get something
Come
going.
on, Voice, you gotta do it.
Let's get something going,
Calling
man.
you out here.
Let's get something going. I want to get Death Row on later on too. I thought you and Death Row as rookies, like you guys couldn't even tell you guys were rookies when you were out there. I mean, you guys are killing it every single night. Your charisma, your guys' freaking stamina, everything. You guys were just keeping up, man. And you talk about the veterans returning. You got Omar coming back. We thought he was hanging it up last year, and Dark Harbor comes back, and
Yeah.
he's back on the saddle again. You have him back to guide everyone. You have Slider X that comes back. Slider X goes back. Him and Bricks go back to
Oh my
Shipwrecked.
God.
It's like those guys are awesome, and you have all this new people, all these new faces coming in, people that also guest a couple of nights. I mean, talk about just having that overall just surprise. It's like a surprise appearance. You just didn't know who was going to show up on what night, but I think the biggest night for you guys thus far in the entire run was the night of the tribute show for Squeaks. I've been talking about this with a lot of the sliders because I want to get everyone's perspective on it. I know everyone's going to have a different perspective when it comes to that. Talk to me what that was like to have the honor and privilege to not only slide with all those, past generations of working Queen Mary and just all these haunts in general, and then getting the honor and privilege to put on a show for Squeaks like that.
Yeah, it was honestly an extreme honor. I mean, that show couldn't have been perfectly executed if we had, even if it was planned weeks in advance. It would not have gone that smooth as it did.
Yeah.
And it went completely perfect. It honestly, hearing the announcement and even still looking back at the videos, I still get chills of that opening.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really special night. Everybody was there. By far, the largest crowd that we've had came out to tribute him. And you had the captain at opening doing the moment of silence for him. You know, a that night by far was one of the most memorable moments
Dude,
of the season.
I constantly said it this month, and people have constantly heard me say it, and I think people are getting annoyed by it by now. But I'd like to dub that the greatest night of Dark Harbor of all time, just because number one, all the people that returned and brought back that nostalgia that was Shipwreck, that was Dark Harbor. And I talked to X after that night. And he was very like, dude, it was just like a big reunion. It was great to see everyone. Like, everyone was there and everyone had positive vibes going in, and everyone just had a fun night. It seemed like I unfortunately could not make it that night. I wanted to so bad. I know it was on like a Tuesday, I think it was, or like a Wednesday
It was
yeah.
an odd day, yeah.
Yeah, it was like a Haunters night where like that's why there was a lot of people that also showed up because Knott's didn't have their day going, so like a lot of Knott's people
Hmm.
showed up for that as well, which I thought was really cool when other people from Haunts go support. That's
Yeah.
always just a great sign of respect. And I'm pretty sure if you guys had any days off too, you guys would have probably been over there going to doing the same thing, and going to check out Knott's.
100%.
But unfortunately for you guys, I mean, you guys were just working straight towards that end of that season. I think it was like 14 days straight towards the end, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Man,
And it was straight continuing. It was funny because I worked teardown as well. 'Cause I worked build and teardown for it, and you get that one day off, and then you're back at 7 in the morning. That day later, and it's like, oh,
dude.
you're like
So
a zombie.
I bet, man, especially like going off getting hit, like, and you working a week in a Hans, like getting hit by a semi truck. You know what I mean? It's like your body, everything you feel that Monday. You know what I mean? Like getting
Oh
up for
yeah.
that week, it's like you feel out of it. Your voice is gone. Your body's sore. You might be sick. Who knows? But
And we all were.
yeah, you might have. It's something's gonna be wrong. But you are someone that I've gotten now to talk to about like the building and the tearing down process. This was by far the biggest floor plant for Dark Harbor that they've ever done, and I think it even expanded and surpassed Shaqtoberfest the last 2 years as
Mhm.
well. What was it like bringing that big floor print to life? I mean, because this was insane. As a fan, I remember walking it and going, "Wow, they really expanded, and it feels more spread out, and it actually feels like you can kind of breathe compared to like it being condensed to what it was." What was it like bringing that
Definitely.
big ass floor print to life? Because it was beautiful.
Honestly, so it wasn't as bad as you'd think it would be. Essentially, it was three phases. First phase, we're working on the barn, the village, all that, and we just got shipments coming in. Second phase, we're working on like pirate ship, Voodoo Village, or Voodoo Bayou, sorry,
Mhm.
where that whole set was right there. And then phase three didn't come until about a month before opening, and that's
Wow.
when the full floor plan was opened up.
Mhm.
And that's where you really, kicked into high gear and had to get stuff done. That's where containers are being moved, stages being built. Guru and his team, absolutely great to work with. They were in and out, and they stayed the whole season. They were up there in the container working on all the lights, sounds, all that. Uh,
By the way, coolest tech booth I've ever seen, hands down, was
oh,
that
by
middle container.
far.
Like I wanted so bad to just get up on those ladders and just stand on that container and look at the entire event. Obviously, I would have gotten kicked
There,
out, but
there was a few nights where Looney sent me to take like the mic that Voice was using back, and
uh-huh.
I'd have to go up there, and it just I'd see Guru up there, and it just the lookout that you could see of the whole park.
Yeah,
It was the perfect location, and just absolutely amazing.
yeah, 100%.
But yeah, build was definitely chaotic. Not as chaotic as teardown, but it was still a chaotic, controlled chaos essentially.
Yep.
You got everything moving at once. You've got things on the ship going on. You've got set dressers working. You've got trucks coming in, trucks leaving. you know, but it was just surreal to see this event come to life. Seeing it from bare bones, nothing coming in during orientation for build, and then seeing the first pallets arrive and then structures being put up,
Yeah,
you know.
dude. I like I said, this floor plant was nuts, man. I mean, I think it was really cool that we had an expanded section for the circus area. They kind of had their own area. That middle
Hmm.
section was kind of like your carnival, kind of freak show area, which I really dug that. And then you had your voodoo area, and then the sliders had their own little area, and of course the main entrance and all that. I think they really,
Yep.
you guys did a good job of spacing everything out, giving everything a proper theming with a proper amount of space to enjoy each theming with, and
Hmm.
then to see not only that, but to see everybody that roamed around as characters to kind of add to the ambiance that was those set pieces. I mean, everything just came out incredible, and it's incredibly hard to believe sometimes that all that is just the front parking lot of the Queen
Yeah.
Mary Hotel, and it's like it must. I know it must be super difficult for them every season to have to, deal with the Dark Harbor event and also deal with guests coming onto the hotel because of the parking situation. And I know they
Hmm.
block certain things. I know it's a whole thing, and I know things got to be up at a certain point and down at a certain point just so they can get that parking back. Um,
It's not even necessarily the parking. We have 12 days to tear down.
Damn.
That's it. That was our deadline. By the 12th day, everything's out. And then Insomniac, while we're taking stuff out, Insomniac's coming in and already
Wow.
building stages.
Wow.
So it's a carefully but chaotically orchestrated transition
Wow.
from 13th Floor Dark Harbor to Insomniac, and they're there for 2 weeks, and then so really they don't get their parking lot back for another 2 weeks.
I know, it's like they got this thing coming in, and it's like you're gonna have a bunch of people come out to this thing now, and it's like they're gonna fill that
Yep.
parking lot again. Um, it's insane though. It's like you just mentioned 12 days. I mean, you guys are talking about, within what sounded like timeline wise about a month and a half to 2 months of just build and phases and preparation, and now you only have 12 days to take it all down. So it's like you go from a month and a half to 2 months of building to 12 days to bring it down.
Yeah.
That must be, how stressful does that get on your part?
It's definitely stressful. I mean, definitely at first when you're seeing everything up still, and you're like, oh damn, like this all needs to come down. You're looking at this and you're like, how the hell are we gonna do this? But then, you get the equipment in, you get machinery and all that, and it really like eases everything up. Makes everything a lot easier. Um, and it's a large crew. It's not a small crew working on it. We got a lot of people working on it. Sean and Tattoo, they're the ones that run it. They're awesome. They keep a tight ship. They keep everything running. And we were lucky enough this season where we just kind of loaded everything on containers. It
Wow.
wasn't necessarily semis. It was just containers. We load those containers up onto the semi, and that was it. And they
Wow.
just come back, and each container is kind of their own maze. So all I gotta do is just unload and then redesign how they make the plans.
Yeah, because it's the same thing for the Los Angeles Haunted Hayride, because 13th Floor runs that
Hmm.
too. They build everything off site, and then like with Hayride at least, but with Hayride they got less time than you do. They got to set up in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks,
Yeah.
and it's like set up for that, and then same thing with Teardown. They got to be just as quick, if not quicker, because of the fact that it is at a national park.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
it's I can only imagine. You're talking about Queen Mary now. The rush with you guys is we got to get this down in 12 days because another company's coming in to build something else that they got a deadline they got to
Yeah.
do. So it's like, yeah, dude, I can only imagine that stress, man. And I would see Instagram stories after that of the aftermath of just what it looked like in phases slowly going away. It was sad to watch, but
Hmm.
hopefully we'll get to see it again this year, man. And I'm so stoked for that. Talk to me about what it was like just roaming the streets of Dark Harbor, man. It seems like you guys had a pretty big open floor plan. Obviously, you were themed characters to either like a clown or something to do with the Voodoo Priestess. What was it
Hmm.
like having that freedom and range to just kind of roam the grounds of Dark Harbor?
To be completely honest, at first intimidating.
I
I mean,
bet.
it's a very large footprint, and you're like, how the hell am I going to cover this?
Yeah.
And eventually you kind of got into a stream like a routine of okay, you go around this path, you go around this path, and you didn't just kind of shuffle up every once in a while. Um, but I think we had enough street talent to where it was definitely, you didn't turn one corner, you didn't see anybody.
Yeah.
There's always somebody at the next corner that you turned. And that was, I think, the best part of it is because people would turn a corner and not expect what to see.
Yeah.
We could be
Even when the
walking down
slider
the
show was
street.
going on, like when you guys, or a lot
Exactly.
of you guys, there was still another big handful of talent that would take over and roam for you guys while you guys were doing the show, and then you guys would kind of just all collide back in and roam
Hmm.
around and just kind of blend in with the crowds. There was always, like you said, there was always someone around the corner, and even during the slider shows, I would walk around and there would still be people out there scaring and stuff, even moving to areas that were a little bit more dead too.
Yeah. And there's one area that was Bricks and Slider X. These guys are crazy because they would stand right at the entrance of um Summoning of Samuel,
Okay.
right on that gangway.
Yeah.
And I remember I just walked over and I kind of looked at them. I'm like, what the hell are they doing? And I just kind of stood back and like behind a trash can, kind of watched for a second. And I kid you not, they would stand there, and as soon as somebody would exit, boom, right on the trash can, and they would jump so far. It was the funniest thing. I was dying
Oh my
after
god.
seeing that.
I was fortunate enough to get the okay and approval to have in the very last night Slider X walk through a maze with me. Um I don't know how I was able to approve that and get that, and I'm a nobody, but I
Yeah,
guess I knew the
up
right
to you for
people.
that.
I was like, I knew the right people, so it worked
Eh,
out. But we got to go through Big Top with him, and we have the video on our
right, I saw that
TikTok.
video.
Yeah, and the funny part about that video is in the beginning we're walking back and forth on the line, and he starts messing with the people in line, but then he starts messing with this girl that's walking in front of us. Like every time he turns, he kicked the rail. Every time he turned, and then she like eventually was like kicked it back. Like it was so funny just to see what he was doing. And man, he's a completely different person when you put him in character compared to the person that he is. I mean, he's an amazing person, and as it's just a human, but when you put him in that character, it's chaos unleashed, and it's the
Yeah,
best kind of
oh,
chaos.
100%.
Him and Bricks, man.
What, yeah, and then one of the nights, Fed, stupidest thing. He had a saw,
Oh, that's not
and
good.
you could tell somebody in line was completely terrified, and they decided to try to escape through an outside like little pocket in the line and run. And I just remember I was walking up behind in the queue line. Looney, sorry in advance. You can hear this.
Yeah.
um, and it was the funniest thing because she didn't know I was there. So Fed just walked up and ripped his saw, and she was completely scared and turned to go run, and then I was just right there, and it was the funniest thing because she was not expecting that, and she didn't know what to do, and she just froze, like did not know what to say, just stood there and just blank face. That was by far one of
Oh man.
the better moments as well.
Dude, and that's what I loved about Dark Harbor, hearing stories from we've interviewed back in like 2021. We interviewed the QM Sliders, and they were telling a lot of similar stories with that. And then we've had X, couple other people, and the one thing that I hear more than anything of anyone that I've interviewed who's ever worked Dark Harbor was just the amount of like, and I don't mean this like you could do whatever you want kind of freedom, but like the freedom you have as a character to really
Mhm.
go about developing how you scare, how you interact with people, and obviously saying what you have to say within reason. But
Oh, 100%.
you know, I don't think there's not a lot of haunts out there that give their actors the freedom to do that. You know what I mean? And to really kind of design the character. I mean, you got Knots that does it, but even they got
Mhm.
some things that you guys probably get away with that they don't. Um,
To an extent.
yeah, I mean, what is it like to kind of have that freedom to kind of not only build your character from the ground up, but like really dictate how the character goes, how the character moves, what the character does, and then just having the freedom to just go out there and just, if one day you felt like being in the circus, I'm gonna stay in the circus. If one day you felt up being in the, like what was that on a day-to-day basis for you?
Unique. I mean, it's something that you're not going to experience many other places. It's we had granted limited freedom, to be able to like stay like within reason,
Right.
certain stuff. Um, there was a few nights where I know a lot of us were just roasting people because it was so slow and it's just so dead. It would turn into just roasting people,
Yeah.
straight up. Just you know, people aren't getting scared. Okay, roast them.
Entertain yourself.
Within reason.
Yeah.
And you can't really do that a lot of other places.
Yeah.
Some places in forests where you gotta be quiet. Some places in forests where you can't say certain stuff. Dark Harbor offered that freedom, and that's what's really unique. That's what I think a lot of people realized with the street talent this season with Dark Harbor is it was a unique aspect.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and that's one of the things I've always loved about Dark Harbor ever since the first time I got to go was to see the amount of freedom that everyone had roaming around and just interacting with everyone. It was so funny. Um, I want to talk about something that you guys I haven't talked about. I know I haven't talked about this takeover so far, and I'll be the first to talk about it with you. Something that you guys did that not a lot of haunts do, and I think more haunts should do it because of the symbolic reasoning behind it, especially in Southern California. And that was you guys, for your last, I think, 2 nights, got to
Hmm.
do Dia de los Muertos, which, I'm not saying that you guys transformed the entire event into like a dia, but you saw decorations, you saw different face paints
Hmm.
and costume ideas that were inspired by Dia de los Muertos. What was it like to kind of do this entire run as one thing, and then kind of do like get a different kind of change in the look and character of that Dia de los Muertos feel to kind of celebrate the Day of the Dead, if you will, with a lot of the fans of Dark Harbor? Because we were there that night and it was fantastic. My girlfriend had told me about it a lot and how much they do the face paints
Hmm.
different and everything. So what was that like to be a part of that and to contribute to that?
But honestly, it was extremely unique. Speed Talent was pretty much the only ones that were able to like change their face paint.
Hmm.
So we were like the only ones able to do like sugar skulls, stuff like that. So that added to definitely a unique aspect of it. And the makeup artists did phenomenal
Yeah.
with the way they did everybody's makeup, and looking back at the photos, you really realize how unique that is. I've never seen another haunt do that.
No.
So that was definitely a privilege to be able to take part of that, but then also honor that
Yeah.
time frame.
Yeah, I mean, the only one that I could think of at the moment that did something like that was obviously Knott's when they had the scare zone in Fiesta Village, like years
Hmm.
ago. But they haven't, like, for someone to kind of just dedicate your, like, especially for you guys, was like the last 2 days of you guys being open. You guys took it upon yourselves to celebrate the Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, especially with Long Beach and SoCal having that rich, Mexican heritage for majority of population.
Definitely.
I could see a lot of people enjoying that or relating to that, or kind of happy that it's being celebrated. I mean, me personally, I love the idea and the concept and just the looks and feels of Dia de los Muertos. I mean, it's iconic. It's like so many
100%.
so many people do the sugar skull paints, and there's so many great ones, and I've seen so many great art pieces with the sugar skull and just the representation overall, flowers and just the ofrendas and stuff. Like, it is just such a beautiful like holiday that is celebrated, and for Dark Harbor to pay tribute to that is just incredible, especially because it was something that they did in the past, so now for them to bring it back for something they did in the past, that really pays tribute to things they've done
Hmm.
and how they're trying to bring this event back. I love the idea and the concept of the event, though. It's kind of just picking up where it left off and kind of just what it would be like in 2024 when it was given to us, when it was announced to us. Um, was it intimidating for you overall, the experience, just coming back, knowing that there were a lot of eyes on this event? There were a lot of probably going to be critiques about the event because of, the fans of the old Dark Harbor, and then this new kind of Dark Harbor comes back, this essential reboot of Dark Harbor, if you will,
Hmm.
in the best way possible. Like, this is a good reboot. This ain't the shitty ones you see in theaters. Um, but
Yeah.
was it something that was kind of intimidating in the beginning because you knew there was a lot to live up to because of the name Dark Harbor, or were you kind of just like, all right, you know what? We're just gonna let it go and see how it goes, and we're gonna learn as we go, and hopefully we'll catch on to all this.
I mean, I think anybody that you ask, it was 100% intimidating.
Yeah.
It's a large thing to, live up to, and I know a lot of people's concerns as soon as it was announced and as soon as Midsummer happened, where they had that panel.
Yeah.
A lot of people were concerned with, oh, it's not the old company, it's 13th floor. It's going to be a repeat of Shaq. And I don't think a lot of people realize that a lot of the old props and a lot of the old costumes and everything were original.
Mhm.
That was all found on the ship, way down in the depths of the ship. It was just still happened to, find it. And I mean, we definitely got a lot of feedback opening weekend, not really good. I mean, as in any haunt, opening weekend's gonna be a little chaotic. And I think that a lot of people looked at opening weekend and thought, oh, this is gonna be the way the rest of the run is.
Yeah.
It wasn't,
No, it wasn't. And
Um,
if I could just attest to that really quick, the biggest thing that hit TikTok during that opening weekend that I saw constantly was the parking situation and
yeah.
the line situation. Like, those were the two biggest things that I saw that hit the internet quick. And we were one of those people. We're like, okay, parking sucked opening weekend, but if I know any haunt and they're trying to still figure shit out, after this first weekend, shit will change. And sure
Hmm.
enough, when we came back, we would always play for the preferred parking because it was the closest one. I didn't want a shuttle; that was just a hassle. Park all the way
Yeah.
in, downtown Long Beach and then get shuttled in. Didn't want to do that, so we always paid for the preferred. Now, in the first night we went, we parked all the way in the park area on the grass. That's where they had us parked.
Hmm.
When we came back second and third time, we parked closer in the main parking lot right there across from the ship.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, they were very good on top of listening to what was going on, seeing and addressing the issues they had with lines and parking, and overall figuring it out a system where it actually worked out for the rest of the run, where they had it a little bit more organized. In my opinion, I'll give them that.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, even with like build and everything, we were complete by opening weekend, but we weren't fully there, if that makes sense. There's still changes that need to be tweaked. If you went through breakout that first weekend and then went through it the second weekend, it was completely changed.
Right.
I don't know if you noticed that.
I
You got
did
the chance to go
not.
through breakout.
I did go through
And
breakout that opening weekend, and then we went every time we went. So longest
yes,
maze
the
doesn't make.
layout.
I gotta say this though, longest maze. I don't understand the story. I don't think anyone does.
It's been mixed reviews, honestly, and I've seen it online where some people get it, some people don't. And I've asked around, I've asked family, I've asked friends, like, "Did you guys get it?" They're like, "Yeah, we got it," and some people are like, "No, I didn't." So I think it's a new topic or like a new thing that they can improve on. It's not necessarily new, but it's something they can improve on definitely
Yeah, no, it was a great maze.
in terms of storyline.
I thought it was the fact that it was like 15 minutes long. It was a long maze.
Oh
But
yeah.
obviously the issue that you always run into with every haunt, and it's nobody's fault other than just the lack of people wanting to try out. Is sometimes there are areas when you walk in the maze and there's just like nobody in there. And we had that
Hmm.
a few times towards the end of the run. Opening weekend was fantastic. I think was our best walkthroughs, other than Feast. I mean, we had a terrible time in Feast, and there was just a traffic jam. We were just stuck in like an area for like 5 minutes, and it was hot. And I was like,
Hmm.
I'm wearing too many layers for this. Um,
It gets hot back there.
it does, man. I mean, you think the ship's gonna get cold? I'm like, there's areas that get really hot in there.
Oh no, especially when it's been hot out, it turns into a furnace real quick.
I imagine though lately, since it's been cold, it's been not too bad, right? Hopefully,
No, it's been comfortable.
yeah. So
I mean,
you,
there's some areas where it's actually really, really cold, but then most of the ships, just comfortable.
it's the spirits are rising. I don't know.
Hey.
I was just taking Dark Harbor's slogan at that point.
Hey, there you go.
Man, I think overall, and you probably feel the same way, man. This was such an incredible comeback for Dark Harbor, and I think it's safe to say that Dark Harbor is probably back. And I think like you said, the biggest worry when going into this season of Dark Harbor was, yeah, people saw the 13th floor name and just immediately thought like, oh, they're behind it, and look what they did with Hayride, and look how hit or miss that goes. It's probably going to be the same thing as Hayride. I'll be honest, for a second, I was a little worried too because of 13th floor. I have nothing against them. It's
Hmm.
just sometimes, their events are good, and then sometimes their events are like, it could be
It's a hit or
better.
miss.
It is. And when I found out, obviously 13th floor just had their name mostly attached to it, and they were kind of providing more or less like the funding for it.
Hmm.
And then you had people like Amy in charge, and all these other people in charge that were really passionate or there for the previous iteration of Dark Harbor. Like, they took Dark Harbor and again they brought it back to life, and it's so awesome, so emotional to see that return, and hopefully, like I keep saying, I hope we get it back for 2025. Um, that's the fingers crossed. If it does return in 2025, safe to say we could see you back, hopefully.
Uh, Most definitely. If you planning, hopefully fully depends on work here. Might be running more tech side this season. Sad to say, just
Hey,
all really varies. If I can get the time off, if I'm able to actually switch from full time to part time to be able to do hunt, 100% gonna do it.
nice.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
I will be back a few nights though, 100% at minimum.
Yeah, man. I mean, you were killing it out there, and I'm glad that you had an experience that you did. how you did with, getting the fortunate opportunity to meet so many people who've worked the event in the past, to meet some new people who are brand new to the haunt world, to meet some people that you probably saw at Shaq that came back for Dark Harbor.
Hmm.
I mean, it was just a great mix of just kind of just putting everything in like one of those bingo balls and pulling the number of what you're going to get. You didn't know what you were going to get, and that was the best part.
Exactly.
And I think you guys succeeded very much. And obviously, it'd be stupid not to bring it back this year because it seemed like it was a very big financial success for them.
It was financial success for them, but also, the Queen Mary. That
Yeah,
money's funding some major projects that we've got going on, and without Dark Harbor, we wouldn't be able to reduce some of the repairs that we're doing now.
yeah.
So it really helped out not only 13th floor, but the Queen Mary itself.
I mean, it's a big deal when the mayor of Long Beach is saying how big of an event and how important of an event that Dark Harbor is and how much money it brings to the city of Long Beach every single year it was open. Like, the mayor was there at the
Oh
day of that
yeah.
announcement. So if he's acknowledging that this is a money-making haunt, they're doing something right
Hmm.
financially. Like, they're doing pretty good. And big shout out to Costco because they were doing the 2 for tickets, and
Yeah.
that's probably why you guys had the crowds you did, because those tickets were just so cheap and so like you could
Oh
not
yeah.
pass on them. We bought them a few
No,
times. I'm guilty of it. I know that for a fact. It saved me a ton of money.
everybody's guilty of
Hey
it.
man, hey, as long as it drew in those crowds and as long as you had people to entertain, that's
There
all
you
that
go.
mattered. Right? Uh,
That's honestly all that mattered.
Dude, 100%. Hey, listen, if anyone wants to keep up to date with you, or if you feel comfortable at all sharing anything like that, where can people, what social medias can people follow you on if you want to
Yeah,
disclose that?
Instagram is gonna be the number one contact. QMDH underscore JB. Um, you got questions about things that are going on the ship. We've got new. Uh, I'll give you a little bit of a hint. NO3, front of B is where you're gonna want to be. New speakeasy.
Nice.
John, if you're watching this, props to you.
Nice.
That's bringing more revenue in. Um, you know, there's a ton of stuff going on behind the scenes
Yeah.
that even preparation for the years to come, you know. So,
It's exciting, man. I'm so glad to see that the queen is getting the love and recognition that she deserves. Quick story: I've managed to avoid saying this story because I know people have heard it so many times, but I like to say it because it brings the sentimental value of the ship to me. But my great grandfather was actually one of the soldiers on World War II that came back on that ship. So every time I go on there, it's just kind of seeing the fact. I look at it more as the World War II ship, the Gray Ghost, than I do the
mhm.
actual luxurious cruise line, because I think the history it had as the Gray Ghost was just phenomenal. Like the shit it can do and how fast it was, and going from Germany to London to like all these places and shit. And it's just like it's insane. Like that ship has a ton of history on it, and
Oh yeah.
it continues to add more to it every single year, especially with an event like Dark Harbor. That adds to its history, its rich history of when people look back 30 years from now, they're gonna be like, "You remember Dark Harbor? Like that haunt was awesome. Whatever happened to that?" Hopefully, it's
Hmm.
still around in 30 years. That's the hope.
I, I still have people asking about it constantly because we still have signs up for it in some places.
Oh, come on!
You
I
know,
I, I need a yeah. If I'm showing up to the Queen, I'll be like, "Where's Dark Harbor? I saw an advertisement on the way here.
yeah.
Like the hell." Um, JB, tell me, I got the hardest question for you right now, right here. This is always my final question. And, to keep of the horror and Halloween vibes, what is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Oh, I knew this one was coming because I saw you ask Ruby this. Oh, damn. um, Honestly, I'm gonna keep it simple. You know, original Halloween,
Classic. Gotta love Michael
classic,
Myers.
original.
Man,
You know, can't beat that.
John Carpenter at his finest in his just early years, and there was more to come right after that. That's a great
Oh yeah,
choice. Halloween is a classic. I watch it every Halloween, at least the first one. I try to watch 2018 every now and then, and I'll try to watch
you
Halloween
have
3.
to.
Yeah, it's a
It's a
staple.
rite of passage.
Yeah,
Each year, you
if
got to do it.
if you don't watch Halloween in Halloween time, then what are you doing? But if you're watching Halloween
Yeah, come on.
outside of Halloween time, then hey, kudos to you.
Yeah, props to you.
Props to you. Good answer, JB. I cannot wait to see you back 2025 season, and I wish you all the best. Keep at it, rebuilding that monument, that beauty that is the Queen Mary. She needs all the attention she can get right now. I know also they're looking at 3D modeling. From what I heard last, like they're going to try to replicate lifeboats so they can get the full experience eventually, to try to make them lighter so it's not as much weight on the Queen. Because I know the old lifeboats just kind of went to shit. They weren't being
Yeah,
taken care of.
structural wise, they had to remove them.
Yeah.
It's in the works, but it's not necessarily a priority.
Right.
We've got more stuff,
Beneath
give you a
the
hint.
yeah.
There's work being done in the pool that's scheduled. So, we've got big projects coming up that it's going to be massive improvements that people have not been expecting at all.
Yeah, and I'm hoping eventually one day when all that stuff's fixed and ready to go, we can start opening up tours down there so we can start having people come and see the historical value and just the Queen Mary as a whole, other than, a couple floors. Now you get to go see how it was all done beneath the floors and where other people stayed in lower classes and stuff. So, it's, and where everyone worked and shit, you know what I mean? Like it's there's a lot that I don't think people have seen yet that, I think at this point right now, you're only seeing about maybe 30-40% of that ship.
If even, honestly.
Like there's so much still that you guys are, like you said, working on and hopefully can uncover soon. So we're all here for it. I need to go back down there just to go do another ghost hunt. Are they still doing the Gray Ghost Project?
They are. I was just speaking with them last weekend. I ran into them at the pool.
It was
So
is it still the
Becca, yes.
Becca, yes. We done it before, and it was a great experience. She was very professional and very, very informational about it. So good for her. And her husband, I think her husband works out in Colorado. The last I talked to her, this was like a year or two ago. Husband works out in Colorado and does the same thing at the Stanley Hotel.
I believe so. I know he's back in town, I think, but I think he's going back to do the Stanley Hotel eventually.
Okay. Yeah, he does the same
Not
thing
entirely
that
sure.
she
I'm not
does.
entirely sure on it. I'll have to ask her, but
Yeah, man, I can't wait. Thank you again. Thank you for your time, man. I know we rescheduled, but we made it work. I'm glad we got you on the show. Again, honor and a privilege to have you on the show, and keep it up, man, because you're only gonna get better from here, and you're doing great things on that ship. So we can't. Your name will always be cemented in that legacy, regardless of what you do from here on out, because you are doing massive work to that ship to rebuild it in its glory again. So we appreciate you and the team for that, and taking on the challenge of bringing that back. It's gonna be cool. It's gonna be great. So keep your eye out on the Queen Mary socials, on their website. There could be announcements coming fairly soon in 2025, even later down the road in 2025. All the events they host there, all that fun stuff. Go support the Queen Mary. Okay, that's all we're gonna say. Also, shout out Queen Mary. When the fires broke out, they invited people to come stay that were affected, and it filled 150% capacity of the Queen Mary. So I think that was like the first time it was really like booked. How is it now? Is it calmed down a little more? Or?
It's calmed down now. I think we're only at 20% occupancy,
So a lot of
it's
people went back
not nearly
home.
as bad.
Yeah.
But we were running a discount, massive discount. Waiving pet fees. We had a evacuee refugee like little area with just like candies, snacks, food. People could get. We're trying to be as accommodating as possible, and I know a lot of the hotels around here were also doing the same.
Right. Big
But
shout out.
yeah,
I mean, it's a beautiful thing to see people come together in times like that, and just for me, there was like a moment I'm like, damn, humanity does exist. You know what I mean? Like, it's awesome. Well,
definitely.
if nothing else more, you can follow us on all of our socials at Nights of Horror across the board: TikTok, Instagram, X, and of course, subscribe right here on YouTube. We got one more episode left next week for the Dark Harbor Takeover. Maybe a second episode, maybe a bonus episode. I mean, I'm working on things. And then March is going to be an extremely, extremely fun month right here for the Mindless Horror Podcast, because right now, announced to the world, Our next theme for March, sliders of the world, scare actors of the world. We're going to be talking to people from all over the world. And we're not even talking about just the United States. We're talking to other countries. So stay tuned right here because it is a big thing. We're going, Nights of Horror is going international. And we cannot wait to bring you on the ride with us. But if nothing else more, I'm your host, Anthony. Stay spooky.